Hello, wonder. Close your eyes for a second and run your thumb across a length of raw silk. Chapter 1. Whispers Beneath the Tides. The story opens not with roaring surf or trumpet blast, but with one hesitant breath between syllables. A breath taken. By Critias the Younger, as he recited his grandfather's dialogue in an Athenian courtyard dusted with orange pollen. The afternoon blurs. Bees fuss around pomegranate blossoms. A bronze aegis reflects shards of late sun, and Critias' mind, heavy with Egyptian lore, starts to utter the name Atlantis. That exhale, audible only to the sparrows perched on cracked lintels, is the first ripple. Imagine yourself in that courtyard. Breathe and count 4 taste clay dust mingling with olive press residue. Hold. Release, count. 6-let sound of children chasing hoop sticks fade behind anise wind. Now tilt inner ear toward Critias' next line. There existed an island beyond the pillars of Heracles, larger than Libya and Asia combined. The claim lands like a pebble in a still well, sending concentric circles across generations. Concentric circles, the phrase matters. Plato will later shape Atlantis' capital into nested rings, but the idea begins here in vibrating air, not carved stone. Words, not walls. Draw the first outline. The Egyptian tablet that never was. Critias swears the tale comes from Solon, who heard it from Preset Says, who read it from a tablet older than memory. Yet no traveler from Achaemenid or Hellenistic courts ever saw that tablet. No shard surfaces in dusty storeroom. Perhaps it cracked. Perhaps it never existed. Still, absence begets longing. Scripts of Phoenician traders mention a Tartessos gleaming with tin. Carthaginian pilots guard iron red. Sailing charts. All these half-facts spin around Atlantis like moths around a night torch drawn to heat, scorched by certainty. Pillars of fog and melted stars. Shift vantage westward to the Gibraltar Strait, then, feared as world's edge, at dawn, fog rises. From brine thicker than fleece, curling around dolerite cliffs, mariners from Gades whisper phantom columns that rear above mist, tall enough to scratch sky. Geologists of our century call them calcite sea stacks, but in antiquity each stack might be mistaken for Atlas's shoulder. When sunlight slices fog, gleams fracture across wave, tops like broken mirrors, melted stars, sailors say. Those melted stars embolden rumor. A landmass lurks beyond, smelting orichalcum under aurora skies, orichalcum's glint in philosopher eyes. Orichalcum, copper alloyed with something rare zinc by modern assay, but to Greeks a glamour metal. Shimmered between gold and ruby. Athenian metallurgists tried, failed, argued blame on impure earth spirits. Traders from Etruria hawked counterfeit ingots. Yet Plato's Atlantis minted orichalcum like drachmae, plating temples until twilight pooled in polished cornices. In dialogues, the metal gleams metaphor, a polity half earthly, half ideal, untrackable except by mind supplied with arte, and geometry seafloor cartography written in salt veins fast forward 2.5 millennia. Bathymetric charts expose an undersea plateau, stretching southwest from the Strait Cadiz Concepcion Ridge. Sediment cores recover microtectites, born of ancient impact or eruption. Marine geologist Vitellini tags sonar ridgelines, remarks they curl like parentheses in dialogue script. The sea, it seems, engages Plato, sketching elliptical footnotes 1,000 meters below tanker hulls, but during Critias' recital none of that is known. Only cedar ink phrases and the hush of listeners bear the map. 2 boys fetch wine. An old sculptor pauses his work on a marble nymph. All lean closer. Critias describes Atlantine kings whose tridents spark lightning when tapped on basalt floor. He was elephants roaming irrigated plains bordered by mountain walls, shedding winter snow into glistening sluiceways. The courtyard listeners feel cool spray as if from unseen fountain, the quiet after the claim. When Critias finishes, sunlight has retreated behind cypress hedge. A single tortoise creeps across flagstone, each step an underscore. One philosopher clears throat to challenge chronology. Another proposes myth value, yet none speak first. A collective pause stretches breath before argument, respect before dissent, curiosity before documentation. This pause is our chapter's hearth, radiating embers still warming 21st century forums. Nightfall over a city that might never have been. Athens' torches ignite, fluttering amber against wind from Attic hills. Critias folds cloak, exits portico. Above, the Great Bear wheels over the Saronic Gulf, pointing toward hypothetical Atlantic horizons. Somewhere beyond that black water, perhaps only a kelp forest disturbs, or perhaps columns of a ruined acropolis tilt under silt, its Orichalcum, cladding long dissolved, leaving ghosts of luster swirling in abyss. Scholars will trek to Thera, to Donana Marsh, to Doggerland Banks, sifting ash and pollen for evidence. Yet the first proof remains sound Critias's hush replayed by every raider who pauses between dialogue C and T. The hush endures, echoing beneath waves, humming behind satellite altimetry, inviting one more breath. Breathe again, 4 in. 2 hold. 6 out, letting the echo stone of Plato's claim settle inside the sternum like a seed awaiting depth. Ahead lie orichalcum pillars, hydraulic canals, quake and torrent, diaspora and myth mutation. For now, keep the whisper safe. The underwater dawn has just begun. Hello, wonder, imagine this. You close your eyes and drift into a gentle mist rising from the sea, salty and cool against your skin. In the distance, there's a name whispered by the waves, Atlantis. Some say it's just a legend, but what? If it still breathes beneath us? What if Atlantis truly existed, and its silent memories still speak to those who listen? Chapter 1. Whispers Beneath the Tides. One afternoon in the 4th century BC, orange pollen drifts across an Athenian courtyard. As young Critias softly breathes a single word from his grandfather's tale, Atlantis. No walls, yet stand only words shimmering in the air, sketching the first, faint silhouette of a city that may have slipped beneath the waves. The story opens not with roaring surf or trumpet blast, but with one hesitant breath between syllables. A breath taken by Critias, the younger, as he recited his grandfather's dialogue in an Athenian courtyard, dusted with orange pollen. The afternoon blurs, bees fuss around pomegranate blossoms. A bronze aegis reflects shards of late sun, and Critias' mind heavy with Egyptian lore starts to utter the name Atlantis. That exhale, audible only to the sparrows perched uncracked. Lentils is the first ripple. Imagine yourself in that courtyard. Breathe and count 4 taste clay dust mingling with olive press residue. Hold. Release count. 6 let sound of children chasing hoop sticks fade behind anise wind. Now tilt inner ear toward Critias' next line. There existed an island beyond the pillars of Heracles, larger than Libya and Asia combined. The claim lands like a pebble in a still well, sending concentric circles across generations. Concentric. Circles, the phrase matters. Plato will later shape Atlantis' capital into nested rings, but the idea begins here, in vibrating air, not carved stone. Words, not walls. Draw the first outline, the Egyptian tablet that never was. Critias swears the tale comes from Solon, who heard it from priests at Sais, who read it from a tablet older than memory. Yet no traveler from Achaemenid or Hellenistic courts ever saw that tablet. No shard surfaces in dusty storeroom. Perhaps it cracked, perhaps it never existed. Still, absence begets longing. Scripts of Phoenician traders mention a Tartessos gleaming with tin. Carthaginian pilots guard iron red. Sailing charts. All these half-facts spin around Atlantis like moths around a night torch drawn to heat, scorched by certainty, pillars of fog and melted stars. Shift vantage westward to the Gibraltar Strait, then, feared as world's edge, at dawn, fog rises. From brine thicker than fleece, curling around dolerite cliffs, mariners from Gades whisper of phantom columns that rear above mist, tall enough to scratch sky. Geologists of our century call them calcite sea stacks, but in antiquity each stack might be mistaken for Atlas's shoulder. When sunlight slices fog, gleams fracture across wave, tops like broken mirrors melted stars, sailors say. Those melted stars embolden rumor. A landmass lurks beyond, smelting orichalcum under aurora skies. Orichalcum's glint in philosopher eyes. Orichalcum? Copper alloyed with something rare zinc by modern assay, but to Greeks a glamour metal. Shimmered between gold and ruby. Athenian metallurgists tried, failed, argued blame on impure earth spirits. Traders from Etruria hawked counterfeit ingots. Yet Plato's Atlantis minted orichalcum like drachmae, plating temples until twilight pooled in polished cornices. In dialogues, the metal gleams metaphor, a polity half earthly, half ideal, untrackable except by mind supplied with arte and geometry.c floor cartography written in salt veins. Fast forward 2.5 millennia. Bathymetric charts expose an undersea plateau, stretching southwest from the Strait Cadiz Concepcion Ridge. Sediment cores recover microtectites, born of ancient impact or eruption. Marine geologist Attilini tags the sonar ridge lines, remarks they curl like parentheses in dialogue script. The sea, it seems, engages Plato, sketching elliptical footnotes 1,000 meters below tanker hulls. But during Critias's recital none of that is known. Only cedar ink phrases and the hush of listeners bear the map. Two boys fetch wine. An old sculptor pauses his work on a marble nymph. All lean closer. Critias describes Atlantean kings whose tridents spark lightning when tapped on basalt floor. He lists elephants roaming irrigated plains bordered by mountain walls, shedding winter snow into glistening sluiceways. The courtyard listeners feel cool spray as if from unseen fountain, the quiet after the claim. When Critias finishes, sunlight has retreated behind cypress hedge. A single tortoise creeps across flagstone, each step an underscore. One philosopher clears throat to challenge chronology. Another proposes myth value, yet none speak first. A collective pause stretches breath before argument, respect before dissent, curiosity before documentation. This pause is our chapter's hearth, radiating embers still warming 21st century forums. Nightfall over a city that might never have been. Athens torches ignite, fluttering amber against wind from Attic hills. Critias folds cloak, exits portico. Above, the Great Bear wheels over the Saronic Gulf, pointing toward hypothetical Atlantic horizons. Somewhere beyond that black water, perhaps only a kelp forest stirs, or perhaps columns of a ringed acropolis tilt under silt, its orichalcum cladding long dissolved, leaving ghosts of luster swirling in abyss-out scholars will trek to Thera, to Donata Marsh, to Doggerland Banks, sifting ash and pollen for evidence. Yet the first proof remains sound Critias's hush replayed by every reader who pauses between dialogues C and T. The hush endures, echoing beneath waves, humming behind satellite altimetry, inviting one more breath. Breathe again 4 in. 2 hold, 6 out, letting the echo stone of Plato's claim settle inside the sternum like a seed awaiting depth. Ahead lie Orichalcum pillars, hydraulic canals, quake and torrent, diaspora and myth mutation. For now, keep the whisper safe. The underwater dawn has just begun. Chapter 2. Columns of Orichalcum dot in Plato's telling. The capital of Atlantis rose in concentric rings of land and water, each ring bridged by causeways lined with columns that shimmered between sunrise rose and moonlit lavender. Most dialogues translate the metal cladding those columns as Orichalcum, a word the Hellenes pronounced with skepticism equal to admiration Orichalcos, literally mountain copper, yet unmistakably described as brighter than bronze in second, only to gold. That appraisal alone rattled the metallurgists of classical Athens. How could a copper alloy, however refined, challenge the solar prestige of gold? One metallurgy before myth, copper's familiar journey dot in the late Bronze Age Mediterranean. Copper's biography followed an ordinary path. Ore pried from malachite veins, roasted to crack sulfur skins, then mixed with tin to harden soft metal into bronze. The process needed only 900 degrees Celsius, reachable by reed bellows and hardwood charcoal. Bronze took on warm russet sheens, patinated toward verdigris, and married easily with cedar dowels and flax cordage, perfect for spearheads, hinges, and temple gongs. Yet Plato insisted Atlantis surpassed this domestic bronze with a mystery alloy that glowed like dawn captured in stone. Orichalcum sat atop gates, columns, and even the city's legal text, each law letter incised into plates of the stuff. If true, Atlanteans wrangled metallurgy into realms unknown until 18th century zinc smelters, or they discovered an entirely different alchemy lost under Silt.2. Reading the ring's architecture wrapped in light, imagine walking the first land ring, a broad promenade paved with basalt slabs cooled to midnight blue, edges chamfered so joints vanish. Every 20 paces stands a column 4 adult arms in circumference. Its shaft appears coppery by lamplight, but flashes pale gold under the morning star. Sunbeams dance across striations, bouncing upward to kiss cedar roof beams. Mariners docking. In the outer harbor report, seeing the glow from a league offshore, a necklace of molten dawn encircling the port. Measurements gleaned from Plato's ratios suggest columns 40 cubits high. Skeptics note that casting any copper alloy in single pieces of that size exceeds Bronze Age furnace capacities. A likelier technique involves repousse, hammer shaping thin sheets over wooden cores, then riveting seams along the floating grooves invisible from ground level. If Atlanteans mastered sheets only 2 millimeters thick, a column could weigh a mere fraction of a solid cast, yet still blind passing galleys with its sheen. 3. Impossible alloys. The zinc conundrum modern labs recreated Orichalcum by smelting copper with roughly 20% zinc, plus traces of nickel and antimony, producing a pale reddish alloy that polishes to sunrise gold. Roman coin hoards from the reign of Caligula feature similar composition, labeled Orichalcum in mint ledgers. Rome achieved this via cementation sealing copper with calamine ore and charcoal inside clay crucibles, letting zinc vapors diffuse at 10 degrees Celsius, but archaeologists find no zinc-rich crucibles earlier than 700 BCE to credit Atlantis. With such skill, 8,000 years prior demands either technology, decades ahead of timeline, or alternative chemistry. Geological surveys of the Azores and Canary volcanic belts reveal pumice fields impregnated with avesite, an oxide-heavy slag containing magnesium and cadmium. Experimental smelts of avesite spiked copper display interference sheens blue. At oblique angles, rose face on matching late sun hues recorded by Hellenic scribes. Atlanteans, if they mined sub-seafloor veins scraped by hydrothermal vents, could have stumbled upon this kaleidoscopic alloy inadvertently. 4 lightning glass. Joints. Fulgurite ceramics, as insulators legends mention that during storms the Orichalcum columns hummed. Geophysicists propose embedded fulgurite saddles where column bases meet, basalt plinths hollow tubes of sand fused by lightning. Such ceramic insulators would ground surges, protecting roofing timbers from wildfire. Several Mycenaean ruins show fulgurite fragments near collapsed megarons, hinting the concept was regionally understood. A ringed city ringed also with storm-safe. Architecture would align myth with practical survival in a flood-prone Atlantic coast. 5-canal reflections. Optical illusions of power. Plato observed that the Atlantean canals mirrored column faces, doubling perceived metallic surface. With water tinted by red algae common in brackish modes, reflections would skew toward ruby, magnifying the alloy's rosy undertone. From a diplomatic balcony on the second ring, emissaries arriving at sunset would witness quadruple glimmers, 2 real columns, 2 mirrored, all waltzing in wind-rippled cadence. The optic spectacle alone could deter aggression. Convincing sailors, they approached a fortress forged of Dawn.6 acoustic secrets, resonance chambers inside. Shafts ancient stonemasons occasionally carved sound tubes within column drums to amplify or dampen wind whistle. Tests at Epidaurus Theater showed narrow cavities tuned to harmonic frequencies. If Atlanteans bored 3-centimeter channels up column spines, the sea breeze could set the Orichalcum skin resonating like colossal Aeolian, harps producing sub-audible hum felt in sternum more than ear. Such atmospherics would turn public. Squares into vibrating sanctums, forging psychological awe every dusk when onshore wanes peaked .7 corrosion. Patina and the final tarnished copper-zinc alloys surrender eventual brilliance to brown-black tarnish unless sealed. Beeswax, cedar pitch, or fish oils might grant decades of shine, while volcanic ash fallout could dull surfaces overnight. Plato's account, delivered generations after cataclysm, reminisces on fresh polish, not ruin. Perhaps survivors yearned for lost radiance, amplifying luster in retelling. Marine archaeologists dragging magnetometers over Kittis Canyon. Recovered brass-like ingots crusted in manganese oxides. Preliminary isotopes suggest North African copper plus unusual lid signature echoing Moroccan Atlas veins. Could these be orphaned Orichalcum cargo? Carbon dating of encrusting shell places wreck around 1200 BC elate bronze collapse window. Yet until ingots undergo full spectrographic scan, the debate remains in candlelit conference halls, echoing Critias's original Hush.8 mythic afterglow alchemy. Rosicrucians, steampunk dreamers, middle-age alchemists tracked Plato's hints, blending copper with mountain secrets inside Athenors, praying for auric blush. The mixture often produced brittle brass or toxic fumes. Still, manuscripts proliferated. Liber Orichalcum by Pseudo-Geber. Hortus Fulgens attributing Orichalcum to dew collected under Aries moon. Renaissance engravers illustrated Atlantean halls as mirrored labyrinths, preluding Baroque hall mirrors aesthetic. Even steampunk literature of the 21st century resurrects twin rings of rose gold towers powered by Orichalcum gearworks. Every era, it seems, polishes its own reflection onto the ancient alloy. 9, silencing the forge. Echo at dusk picture the final evening before Atlantis trembles. Foundry. Chimneys exhale last tongues of copper zinc vapor. Hammer cadence slows. Molten metal stills in crucibles. Workers drain slack channels, revealing cooled rivulets resembling petrified rivers. A foreman scratches ledger on palm leaf, recording ingots stored for tomorrow's temple facade. He extinguishes furnace coals under seawater hyssop curtain. Fall of steam. Hours later, tectonic plates jolt. Columns, once shimmering axial spines of civic pride, sway, sheer rivets, and peel Orichalcum sheets like citrus rind. Polished skins crash into canal, floating briefly like wounded swans before sinking to silt. Dawn never sees them rise again. Only legends salvage their gleam. Breath to carry forward, exhale now, 6 counts, envisioning the last spark flicking. From an Atlantean hammer, freezing mid-air as myth takes custody. The columns of Orichalcum stand no more in stone, but their optical echoes persist in glowing copper roofs of Houseman Paris. and brass hull plates of Victorian divers, and rose gold circuitry of orbital satellites. The riddle of impossible always continues, inviting each generation to fire another crucible under philosophical heat and wonder if the old recipe ever truly cooled. Chapter 3. Circle, city, and moonlight.night has mastered the horizon, yet the capital of Atlantis gleams as though dusk forgot to close its shutters. A full moon low enormous hovers above the western sea, dripping platinum onto concentric rings of water and land that define the metropolis. From above, the city resembles an eye, a pupil of basalt-topped acropolis, an iris of glimmering canals, a sclera of white stone suburbs, all framed by ebony sea. Ancient chroniclers claim the layout was dictated by Poseidon himself, who carved trenches with his trident to keep mortal ambition circling divine calm. Engineers suspect more practical motives: hydraulic pressure, maritime defense, aesthetic persuasion. Whatever truth floats beneath legend, the geometry remains mesmerizing. Breathe in for 4 counts, 1, 2, 3, 4, imagining the tide surge flowing through the outermost canal. Hold for 2. Exhale over 6, picturing the surge sliding under bronze drawbridges toward the moonlit harbor. Gulls will overhead, crying sharp vowels translated into ripples along Blackwater. 1. 7 rings and the tide clock. Plato lists 3 rings of sea and 2 of land. Later Roman commentaries expand to 7, perhaps embellishing civic pride. For this exploration, we'll adopt the septenary model documented by the 2nd century Alexandrian geometer Ptolemaeus Rakos, whose parchment copy surfaced in the Borgian collection in 1778. His scale rule sketch shows 1. Central citadel, ring 0, basalt plateau crowned with the temple of Poseidon. 2. First water ring, canal 1, minus 200 plethora across, moated by brackish tide. 3. Inner market, ring land 1, artisans, bronze guilds, oracle archive. 4. Second water ring, canal 2, wider, supports freshwater fish weirs. 5. Residential ring, land 2, limestone row houses, marble colonnades. 6. Third water ring, canal 3, navigable to triremes, anchor pylons lined in Orichalcum. 7. Outer agrarian ring, land 3, terraces of quinoa-like grain and orchards. Each canal depth correlates to tidal amplitude. Canal 1 only ankle deep at neap tide. Canal 3 plunging thrice a man's height at spring tide. Oracle records describe ebb flow as a booming clock, its noise tracked by copper gongs sounding at sluice gates when waterline hits engraved glyphs. Navigation cadets trained by listening to the gongs, learning to predict canal drift. With ears before eyes, hydraulic mathematics Atlantean engineers computed canal volumes using a base 12 numeric script. A marginal note on tablet Delta 17, recovered near Cadiz Canyon, gives the equation: delta V equals pi r underscore o, r underscore I squared, where r underscore o and r underscore I represent outer and inner radii of a ring, and h denotes variable tide height. The scribal gloss states, when V exceeds twice the mouth of the eastern sluice, open the basalt teeth, was the city wear a water crown. The basalt teeth refers to movable gates milled with cogs of black porphyry. Greeks marveled how such gates resisted corrosion modern. Metallurgists credit manganese-rich lava deposits. 2 moonlit transit, bireme footbridge, spiral ramp. On lunar bright nights, merchant biremes glide along Canal 3, carrying cedar wine barrels bound for inland estates. Rowers dip oars in synchrony, each stroke whispering foam into phosphorescent wake. Above them, footbridges arch between land rings. Bridge balustrades bear glyph inlays describing fair tools payable in saffron threads, rather than coin to simplify weight at guardhouses. Guards weigh bundles against polished hematite stones. The silver sheen of hematite plus golden glow. A saffron sets a chromatic ritual, turning commerce into theater. Spiral ramps descend from footbridges to quays at waterline, wide enough for cargo carts. Ramp interiors double as pressure tunnels. Hollow cores channel excess surge upward, venting spray through carved lion mouths. Visitors hearing feline hisses interpret them as harbor spirits. Engineers hear pressure regulation. The two truths coexist. 3 urban zoning, material gradients. Central citadel foundations carved from basalt plate, tempered by volcanic heat. Stark, almost austere, Land 1 buildings faced with orichalcum and marble. State workshops produce star-calibrated declinometers used for navigation. Land 2 limestone stucco. Colonnades sporting lapis cornices. Streets paved with crushed seashell aggregate that reflects torchlight. Land 3 adobe mixed with volcanic ash. Red tiled roofs. Vineyards and terrace quinoa fields irrigated by Kanak-style channels. Material transitions. Mirror social strata but softly. Artisans in Land 1 mingle with priests on feast days. Farmers in Land 3 attend amphitheater in Land 2 via ferry. Tickets subsidized by grain surplus. The ring design encouraged radial flow, dissolving hard glass walls into watery corridors. Night illumination grid. Copper pipes convey burning sea gas, likely methane pockets tapped under mud flats too. Ramp posts along Canal 1. Pressure valves regulate flame height to palm breadth. A reflective mica backing amplifies brightness, casting ripples of amber across water. Early travelers speak of stars below, stars above. Stepping onto footbridge, feeling suspended between constellations. For water engineering pulse. Sluices and inverse locks. The canals communicate via inverse. Locks water elevators reversing typical level differentials. Each lock chamber, lined with pine tar boards, floats on hollow ceramic drums. To move a vessel upring, inner sluice opens. Seawater fills drums, sinking platform, raising waterline. Vessel glides forward, drums drain, platform rises. Water returns outward. Cycle time, 15 minutes. Match to gong interval. Hydraulic scribes tracked corrosion by etching depth gauges into lock walls. Silica-rich water formed opal sheen protecting ceramics, a biomineral gift from diatom colonies living in brackish swirl. A feedback loop. Living biofilm safeguards clay hull stabilizes habitat. A city symbiosis encoded in algae. 5 lunar festivals, ring of mirrors dot every 3rd full moon. Priest engineers pivot polished bronze mirrors atop temple spires. They focus moonbeams along radial streets, creating a luminous spoke pattern visible from watchtowers beyond outer. Farms. Canal surfaces act as secondary reflectors, projecting shimmering nets onto Acropolis walls. Participants claim the pattern aligns chakras with Poseidon's trident. Skeptics note tidal alignment prevents barge collisions by intensifying ambient light. During the festival, circumnavigation races occur. Athletes swim Canal 1, run Land 1, paddle reed kayaks in Canal 2, sprint through colonnades in Land 2, row tandem skiffs around Canal 3, then dash fields of Land 3 back to start. Timekeepers use water clocks perched under bridge arches, calibrated by fixed inflow during high tide. Winning teams carve laurels into basalt ring encasing the central lighthouse. 6 defenses, wave breaker reefs, and magnetic chain nets. Outer. Harbor mouth guarded by artificial reefs shaped like crescents, built from interlocking tufa blocks quarry on adjacent seabed. Channels between crescents funnel incoming waves into vortex basins, dissipating energy. Ancient divers installed magnetic iron sand chain nets across basins, capturing debris and potentially small vessels. Magnetite ore dredged from river deltas spiked chains with natural polarity. Saltwater kept surfaces slick, hindering saw. attempts. Royal Navy records mention enemy triremes drawn off course by magnetic flow, colliding with reef. Sailors reported compass stones spinning wildly, though compasses in Bronze Age remain hypothetical. The anecdote hints at early lodestone. Experimentation. 7 acoustic codes. Conch T L E G R A P H Y dot communication across rings, handled by conch trumpeters stationed on tower roofs. They practice 5-tone code. Low A for water level alert, mid C for festival start, E sharp for fire watch, high G for foreign sail sighting, descending GA for peace invocation. Sound carries over water 20% farther than over land. Now echo amplifies. Nocturnal signals allow harbor pilots to adjust moorings without lanterns. Preserving oil. Point 8, a moonlit walk before history shifts. Envision strolling land to colonnade under full moon. Footfalls clack on seashell terrazzo. A bronze brazier sizzles brine mullet near Market Square. Reflection of temple beacon wobbles on Canal 2, scattering silver shards across hull of merchant trireme bobbing at anchor. Somewhere upstream, a sluice clanks. Water hums through tunnel, sounding like distant harp strum. You pause on marble bench topped by lionfish sculptures. Hand presses cool stone transfers pulse into lithic memory. From across canal, laughter rises workers off shift, toasting with ceramic cups. Above them, ring after ring of city architecture recedes like nested halos toward silent central plateau dot in this tableau. Nothing hints at cataclysm. Yet subterranean plates flex, a distant volcano exhales. Sea level ticks upward grains at a time. Urban splendor rests on a fulcrum subtle as tide clock gong. But for tonight, systems breathe, water listens, moon records, dot closing exhalation. Let the breath ease out 6 counts, mirroring tide slipping through reed signage at outer agrarian ring. Carry forward memory of rings, canals, and hydraulic marvels, the mechanical heart of Atlantis, still pumping in story long after water stilled. The city's pulse. Chapter 4. The 10 Kings Covenant. When Poseidon first carved Atlantis' core with his trident, legend says he crowned 10 hilltops and assigned each to a mortal son. From these sons descended the 10 kings, a council monarchy unique. In Bronze Age politics, part federal senate, part dynastic chessboard, all shimmering beneath an Orichalcum veneer that masked increasingly clashing ambitions. Plato summarizes their pact in fewer than 30 lines, yet the covenant governed. Law, irrigation, diplomacy, even marriage markets for centuries. Modern political scientists call it an early experiment in radial sovereignty. Sovereignty emanating from one divine epicenter, diffusing outward like spokes, then arcing back toward a hub whenever crises forced unity. Breathe once, 4 counts. Imagine salt wind gliding across rimmed canals toward 10 hilltop palaces, whose torchlight volleys between parapets and coated flashes. Hold 2 beats, the interval kings agreed upon before any edict took effect. Exhale 6, picturing the flashes, sinking into a single pulse visible to fishermen leagues offshore. 1 genealogic geometry. Each royal line carried a geometric sigil engraved on signet rings and palace lintels. Atlas line, circle within circle, symbolizing universal centrality. Umos line, intersecting crescents, hinting at diplomacy between day and night. Mesius line, 5-pointed star, denoting memory and record keeping. Autochthon line, spiral square, champion of agrarian reforms. And so on through the decagon of heraldic math. These sigils appeared on tax tablets, water clock faces, even clay tokens that children used in street games. They turned political literacy into daily iconography. A mason roughing limestone. Blocks knew which quarry tithe went to which hill by glancing at stamped crates. Yet geometry breeds comparison. When the Atlas line renewed Acropolis ramparts with imported granite, lesser hills petitioned for upgrades. Citing Covenant Clause 4 Delta 7, improvements to the crown shall echo in each diadem. Treasury gongs rang thin. Jealousy thickened. 2 Council. On the Tide House balcony. Picture the balcony of the Tide House, a marble dais cantilevered over the innermost canal. Large enough for 10 thrones, but narrow enough to remind each king that one careless elbow could topple a neighbor into water. Balustrades bore dolphins carved from lapis. Between them, iron braziers hissed lamb fat, scenting debates with rosemary smoke. Council met every 6th crescent moon. Protocol opened with synchronized libation. Each king poured wine from silver. Ewers at identical tilt, using an hourglass of pink quartz as timer. If sand finished before the last droplet fell, the tardy pourer forfeited speaking order for that session. Records show only 6 forfeits across 2 centuries, proof that ritual can enforce punctuality better than guards. Debates unfolded along radial lanes, taxation first, then canal upkeep, then foreign treaties, finishing with ceremonial sport. Rosters, votes tallied via colored shells dropped into Orichalcum bowls. Public scribes recited totals along colonnades so bystanders could track policy in real time, an early form of parliamentary transparency. 3 succession spiral and marriage CARTOGRAPHY. The covenant mandated that each throne pass clockwise through bloodlines every 4th generation, preventing any single family from logging a strategic Watergate. Implementation required meticulous marriage cartography. Genealogists plotted unions on terracotta star charts, aligning betrothals with lunar nodes to satisfy priest astronomers. A princess of the Mesius line might wed a prince of the Humulus line only if her dowry included barley terraces balancing the star weight, red, political leverage of his tidal mills. Failure triggered compensation via orichalcum ingots or rarely transfer of flute choir troops prized in festival. Economy. Marriage thus became hydraulic calculus, joined to bloodlines, reroute to water rights. Over decades, charts tangled. When dowries lagged during the first drought cycle, Atlas line elders whispered about abolishing the rotation clause. Hubris sated itself here. In-skip dowry deliveries and hastily redrawn inheritance spirals dubbed 4 hubris in 3 acts. Act 1, the excess. Gate Umos Hill financed an 11-arch triumphal gate plated entirely in orichalcum, eclipsing Atlas's 10-arch original. Citizens roared approval, but Atlas Court saw arithmetic rebellion, a visual claim to superiority. Complaints reached Tide House balcony. Humulus argued gates were civic altruism. Council tabled matter, yet resentment bubbled like seawater through cracked sluices. Act 2, the grain hedge atop Van Hill. Steward of agrarian ring, walled grain depots after rats plundered stores, levying tolls on competing hills. Mimesius. Line objected. Covenant Clause Ix Theta 2 guaranteed open silo access. Autochthon cited rodent threat. Critics saw hoarding. Inflation nipped marketplace. Barley loaf prices doubled. Act 3, the golden trident insignia Atlas King forged a ceremonial trident tipped with actual gold, parading it atop Acropolis during Moon Festival. Poseidon's priests praised symbolism. Rival hills deemed it blasphemous monopoly over. Divine favor. Rumor spread that Atlas lineage bribed Crease with crystal amphorae of Black Sea amber wine. Council sessions devolved into accusations flung like amphora shards. 5 fault lines beneath marble floors. Geologists reading modern. Sonar of Azores Gibraltar microplate detect fault ribbons under hypothetical Atlantean ridge. Seismic murmurs align with sagas describing Earth groaning during last council decade. Stone cutters at quarries found new cracks in marble benches, likening them to lightning frozen inside rock. Minor tremors shook water clocks. Mid-session, splashing time onto scrolls omen scribes noted these stains in margins. Hydraulic inspectors reported sluice gates sticking as foundations skewed. Pressure differentials between canals rose, causing wakes that battered dock pilings. Maintenance budgets stalled amid faction quarrels. Harbor masters filed grieving tablets, now dredged up coated in barnacle limestone. Hubris met tectonics. Political stress mirrored crustal stress. Neither received adequate release. 6. The Covenant's final amendment. Facing famine whispers. The Council drafted an emergency grain mandate. Atlas and Humulus would lend seed grain to attack them for resowing failed terraces. Nesius would lower tax on Orichalcum exports to fund new granaries. In return, Atlas would cede one festival day's precedence to Outer Hills. Seals set, amphory shipped, but arrival tardy. First typhoon in recorded memory slammed the delta's salting fields. Imported barley sprouted pale, then blackened. Scribes carved epitaph on clay. Seed drowned before root. Council fatigued. Postpone next session. 7 Aftermath. Silence of the balcony. On the night the Covenant died, no gongs rang. Witnesses say torches on outer parapets sputtered in still air, refusing to form the usual ring of fire. A moonless tide rose higher. Then coastal sills, licking limestone foundations like unseen quarry saws. Frogs chorused inland, fleeing brine. Tradition required kings to assemble at first light following any flood breach. Dawn arrived an hour late, veiled by volcanic haze from distant eruption. Some suggest Santorini. Only 4 thrones filled. Records end with that attendance log 4 names, 6 absences. Blank scribe space requiring signatures never penned. Final exhalation. Breathe out 6 counts letting imagery of 10 thrones. Rot orichalcum gates and silent gongs disperse. Into soft coastal fog. Politics, succession, and hubris, once twined like triple braids of cedar smoke, when strands frayed, covenant unraveled. Next waits the seaquake, thunder tide, an ashen winter that will test what remains of radial sovereignty. Chapter 5, Temple of Poseidon. Long before dawn, the innermost canal mirrors nothing but an obsidian sky pricked by Orion's silver belt. Then, as if cued by an unseen conductor, a bronze gong resounds across the water. From the Citadel Plateau, torchlines wake, snaking down basalt stairs toward the Temple of Poseidon, Atlantis' holiest precinct and the hydraulic heart that anchors every ring. Columns of Orichalcum from Chapter 2 frame its portico, but here they gleam cooler, stained by centuries of sea spray and votive oils. The temple's facade glitters in moon-bleached platinum, yet exudes a gravity that hushes sandals on marble. Breathe once, count for imagining the cold. Tang of brine-laden wind funneling through those columns. Hold for 2. Exhale 6. Picturing torchlight wobbling across. Tessellated floor mosaics fashioned from indigo basalt and dolphin white marble. 1. The whaleback stair and salt mist atrium. Pilgrims ascend a whaleback stair, its steps bulging purposely, arching, like ribs to remind devotees that they tread on a leviathan's spine. Each riser is etched with a wave glyph indicating tidal highs. The lowest glyph lies ankle deep when a king tide coincides with winter solstice, transforming the stair into an ephemeral spillway watery rites where initiates wade barefoot. Believing Poseidon inscribes favor between toes dot at the summit spreads the salt mist atrium, an open court where seawater fountains aerosolize brine into a fine vapor, cooling the air. The vapor refracts torchlight into pastel halos, casting rainbow coronas around acolytes' shaved heads. Oracle chants blend with fountains hiss, creating a stereo hum low vowels vibrating through limestone, high mist tingles dancing around. The tympanic membrane. Visitors report gooseflesh, even in humid heat, point to dolphin stone mosaics. A limestone cinema dot the atrium floor hosts the empire's most intricate dolphin stone mosaics. Artisans shape tesserae from limestone veined with cerulean lapis lazuli, calcite, white marble, and jet basalt. Tiny fragments under 2 millimeters across create chiaroscuro. Dolphins leap beneath stylized breakers, their backs catching phosphor, flecks that simulate dorsal sheen. When pilgrims circle clockwise, torchlight flickers across mosaic ripples. Producing an optical illusion, the dolphins appear to arc in perpetual motion, water curling before their beaks, waves collapsing behind. Tails. Scholars call it persistence of glint, an early canoptic technique. One panel, titled Confluence of Currents, depicts dolphins flanking a trident whose prongs stab concentric rings, symbolizing the canals. Along ring vertices, microtesserae of mother of pearl reflects stray moon shards, mapping lunar phases over hydraulic sluice cycles. Engineers consult these symbols to schedule lock maintenance. Acknowledging craft and worship cohabitate mineral canvases. 3. The Nereid choir and spiral hymns. Mid-courtyard stands a circular dais 10 paces across, its rim carved with names. Of 50 Nereid sea nymphs credited with setting Poseidon's temper. At each new moon, choristers called the Briny 13 mount the dais to perform spiral hymns. They sing while rotating counterclockwise, breath time so that each stanza begins facing the sanctuary door and ends as backs meet congregation. Sonically, the hymn spirals, bass notes fanning outward, trebles snapping like foam, producing Doppler swells that mimic tide surges lapping ringed canals. Visitors from Mycene liken the sound to bronze snakes uncoiling in the ear. Acousticians modeling the choir in 3D simulations find that limestone column spacing focuses certain frequencies, amplifying a 56 Hz undertone correlated to human cardiac rhythms. Thus, worship becomes a resonant biofeedback. Hearts entrain, breath harmonizes. Communal pulse accelerates, then settles according to hymn cadences. 4. Sacred rites, the sevenfold salination. The sevenfold salination is the temple's prime ritual, performed at equinox dawn when canals align with rising sun's path. High priest Delphus Anector proceeds from inner sanctuary, clutching a trident whose central tine houses a jade siphon tube. He dips the trident into a triple-lip basin containing stratified seawater, each layer colored with natural dyes red. From carmine algae, green from subcanal kelp, gold from pollen suspension. Removing the trident, he releases a finger valve. Seawater spurts through pinholes at tine tips, forming tri-colored arcs that fuse mid-air into a helix descending onto the dolphin stone tiles. Believers kneel, collecting droplets on bronze mirrors. Water, sanctified biochemical dyes, and solar rays refracted through trident crystal, becomes elixir for canal purification. Crew leaders sprinkle the mixture into upstream inlets, believing it calms water demons that swirl nets and stall ferry rudders. Skeptics treat the rite as microbial. Management. Carmine algae secrete anti-diatom compounds, kelp extracts release. Iodine, both mildly antiseptic, while pollen fosters beneficial plankton communities. Poseidon worship thereby doubles as public water quality stewardship. 5. Oracles of the tidal Sibyl. Beyond an arch draped in violet kelp cloth lies the tidal Sibyl's grotto, a limestone hall open to tide pulse at floor fissures. That's it. Sea nettles glow faintly, secreting bioluminescent blue hints whenever waves kiss their stalks. Oracle Melanip sits on basalt stool carved with whirlpool glyph. Her feet rest in a silver pan collecting seep water. Petitioners approach with clay tablets inscribed with queries about weather, war, or romance. Melanip lowers reed stylus into brine ink, writes cryptic verse on tablet reverse, then douses script in crushed cuttlefish to fix words smudge-proof. Scholarly decoding reveals Melanip's meter matches title. Interval, 12.4-hour cadence. Her shortest oracle reads, Like moon, your empire shall eclipse but not vanish. Bronze copy later hangs on council archives, unsettling senators who prefer prophecy scented with certainty. 6 sacrifices of coral and wind, contrary to rumors of bull immolations. Atlantis sacrifices coral fans and bottled wind. Coral fans, pruned from offshore reefs, are arranged around altar flame, their polyps still vibrant in seawater baths. Priests chant until flame heats copper basin, releasing cedar aroma. Coral, sensing temperature shift, retracts polyps, turning fans bone white. Whitening marks symbolic surrender of sea treasure to deity. Wind is captured in goatskin bladders aboard fast triremes, racing ahead of storms. At ritual, priests slit bladder necks. Compressed gust roars against flame, causing the cobalt spark. Sailors claim the spark foretells safe return. Meteorologists might see pressure release as early barometer wane captured, studied, then offered up. 7 Temple economy, pearl notes, and tide bonds. Banks along Canal 1 honor pearl notes oval. Tablets of nacre minted by temple treasurers. Each pearl note represents 1 dynamis unit, roughly a day's canal log labor. Markets trust them because temple vaults hold actual pearls harvested from submarine farms, supervised by Delphus Ananter's acolytes. During drought of Chapter 4, kings issued tide bonds, promissory shells redeemable after next equinox festival. Some bonds washed ashore centuries later on Algarve beaches, edges smoothed, inscriptions still legible. Numismatists adore such finds. They illustrate decentralized credit built on marine resources, predating Phoenician glass currency by centuries. 8 Decline note, hairline cracks in dolphin stone. Years pass. Tectonic murmurs, detailed in upcoming Chapter 6. Carved hairline. Cracks across dolphin stone mosaics. Saltwater seeps, staining lapis flakes. Acolytes patch with fish glue. Patches discolor into green bruises. During a midsummer hymn, a supporting column resonates off-key. Engineers detect void behind marble veneer. Ritual continues, faith outruns evidence, but stone diaries record distress in shifting tesserae. Priests debate raising causeway edges to combat rising tide. Council deadlocked, Orichalcum shortage, treasury drained by ongoing drought relief. Temple petitions for basalt from Atlas Hill. Atlas requests favorable oracle in return. Delphus Anactor hesitates, bartering prophecy feels profane. Negotiations. Stall. 9 Final candle on the whaleback stair. One moonless dawn, a tremor shivers canals. Whaleback steps fracture. Amber torch oil spills. Lapping wave ignites flame serpent, slithers down the stair, reflecting in canals like comet tail. Priests race to extinguish. Marble scorches, mosaic fish darken. Temple doors close for structural assessment, but aftershocks. Ruined scaffolds. Worshippers reroute devotions to lesser shrines. Dolphin stone floors cool, unpolished. Still, on certain nights, wind tunnels through precinct, teasing broken concords into faint chords. Coupled with moon shadow, fragments of hymn resurrect in echo chambers. A guard claims to glimpse blue-white, dolphins racing across cracked tesserae, tails flicking sparks. Perhaps bioluminescent algae reclaiming grout. Perhaps memory refusing silence, closing tide. Exhale 6 beats, let seawater hiss and choir spirals settle. The temple of Poseidon stands luminous yet fissured, clinging to devotion as tectonic grumbles grow louder beneath. Ahead, quake, torrent, and ash. But tonight, torch reflections still waver on orichalcum shafts, oracle verses still dry on cuttlefish ink, and dolphin mosaics, though cracked, still sparkle under ephemeral moonlight. Chapter 6 Quake in torrente copper sky, rimmed with bruised purple, hovers above Atlantis as dawn's first gull stutters mid-flight. The bird stalls, tilts a moment, then shears away. instinct curling it toward open sea. In that hesitant wing beat, the city overlooks a secret. The crust beneath its concentric rings has just twitched for the first time in 13 generations. 1. The jigsaw under the Aegean Gate. Modern bathymetric scans reveal a mosaic of microplates, stretching from the Azores fracture zone to the Hellenic Trench. Researchers name the central shard the Atlantis escarpment block, a limestone raft pinched between two grinding giants, the Moroccan-Nubian plate to the south and the Ibero-Celtic plate to the north. Geological borings drilled by the 2019 Poseidon Ridge expedition pulled up serpentinite laced with olivine crystals, minerals forged not in shallow seabeds, but in mantle depths where pressure knits atoms into tight hexagons. Simulated models show stress loading along the Eurus Fault, a strike-slip shear slicing the ocean floor 60 kilometers west of Atlantis's outer harbor. For 2 centuries, that fault crept silently, releasing tension through microslips that registered only on coral polyps, their growth rings thinned episodically, a seawater seismograph. Yet state engineers in late Bronze Age Atlantis lacked coral microscopes. They trusted tidal gongs and star charts, not mantle echoes. 2 first tremor, the ripple beneath Dolphinstone, 6:14 a.m. local solar time. Temple of Poseidon, mosaic. Tesserae pang under priest Delphus Anector's sandaled feet. The floor ripples, not visibly but kinesthetically, like parchment slapped by wind. Oil lamps swing, casting elongated dolphins that appear to leap further not by artisan trick, but by shifting horizon. Acolytes exchange glances, each hearing their own pulse amplified within seashell helmets of panic dot along Canal 1, market vendors. Feel wooden pilings groan, rope moorings tighten. A barge ferryman drops his oar, mistaking the vibration for net entanglement. In the agrarian ring, goats bleat, stamping soil that suddenly feels hollow dot amplitude. Magnitude 5.1, depth 22 kilometers. Insufficient to topple columns, but enough to knock alabaster cups from banquet tables. Scholars later nickname it the Courser Quiver, after palace racehorses that whinnied in unison. 3 tectonic domino, submarine avalanche primer, earthquakes. Near continental shelf edges often jolt sediment fans built for millennia of river. Runoff. When slope exceeds 3 degrees, a quake sideways jerk liquefies sand, launching a turbidity current, an underwater avalanche traveling up to 70 kilometers per hour. The Eurus Fault sits adjacent to the Cadiz submarine fan, a colossal wedge of silt 200 meters thick. Paleoseismology cores show turbidite layers every few centuries, each marked by sharp transitions from coarse sand to fine clay. Within hours of the Courser Quiver, hydrophones would have detected low-frequency rumbles, granular swarms cascading. Downslope, dragging boulders the size of villas. Absent such devices, Atlantean fishermen simply noticed the outer sea darkening as if dyed with soot. That soot was mud suspended in racing water columns, scouring seabed organisms, charging forward invisibly beneath still calm surface for symphony of cracks. Day 2 dot at noon, twin aftershocks, magnitudes 4.3 and 4.7, ripple through limestone. Quarries on Atlas Hill, mason apprentices collecting offcuts, witness hairline fractures snaking across freshly sawn blocks. They think humidity. Foreman mutters bad bedding planes, yet a stonecutter traces one fisher with mallet, tapping until chime shifts from bell bright to dull drum. Cavity below. Clerks in water ministry counts loose irregularities. Canal 3's west lock closes, 11 seconds slower. Gauge staffs bounce erratically. Brackish fish dart upriver against usual flow, as those sensing pressure gradients. 0.5 typhoon of the abyss, submarine avalanche ignition. Midnight on the 3rd day. The caddis fan fails. Thousands of cubic kilometers of sediment detach, descending. A 500-meter slope, entraining seawater, compressing it into supercritical slurry. Hydrostatic pressure converts potential energy into kinetic roar. At 25 kilometers out, the current collides with a subaqueous ridge, deflects upward, displacing millions of tons of water column. Ocean surface bulges, a silent dome 30 meters high, traveling 500 kph. No weather flag warns harbor pilots. Moon still hangs coy, yet tide clocks hiccup. Gongs strike out of schedule. Parrots caged in market stalls scuttle to cage bottoms. 6 sky block wave, impact to outer reef. 4:37 a.m. Outer harbor crescent reef. First crest arrives, annihilating lunar calm. Limestone breakwater, engineered to diffuse storm swell. Fractures like porcelain. Magnetic chain nets rip apart, scattering lodestone beads that hiss when sea sucks them seaward. Survivors later recount the wave face luminous with trapped phosphorescent plankton, glowing eerie green within black silhouette. Observers on land, 2 testify water columns rose taller than Temple of Poseidon's roof spire, blocking constellations, turning sky black. Hydrodynamic simulations by 2021 METI Poseidon project show run up. Heights of 38 to 42 meters inside Canal 3 due to funnel effect between rings. Even masonry ring walls act as amplifiers, reflecting surge into higher stacked bores. Pressure breaks, basalt teeth sluices. Inverse locks invert catastrophically, sucking vessels upright and slamming them upside down onto plazas. 7 chain reaction. On land rings. Canal 3 overtops into residential ring. Marble colonnades snap. Seashell aggregate pavement liquefies under hydrostatic pounding. Water cascades into Canal 2, merging with inland surge triggered by simultaneous storm-driven rainfall from volcanic ash clouds, Santorini plume. Combined flows overwhelm. Culvert tunnels. Bronze drawbridges twist like soft wax. In temple atrium, coral wind sacrifices float free. Dolphin mosaics vanish beneath silt-laden flood, their tesseries scattering like blue confetti caught in whirlpool. Torches extinguish with hiss equivalent to temple gongs, a final chime. 8. Pillar collapse, dominoes of Orichalcum. Columns plated with thin Orichalcum sheets survive initial impact, but wooden cores waterlog within hours. Expansion stresses. Rivets, sheets peel. Wind from retreating surge tears loose skins. They clatter along streets, reflecting dawn-red lightning from distant ash cloud. Residents later exiled to IKEA speak of flying copper petals, slicing air. Historians record few casualties by blade, most by crush and drowning. Citadel Plateau holds longest. Basalt resists water, but earthquakes dislodge retaining walls. Central lighthouse tilts 7 degrees. Library roof collapses, burying astronomical. Charts under amphora shards. A scribe survives by clinging to floating cedar tablet case. That case, barnacled, will wash onto Tunisian shore centuries later. Discovered 1997 with waterlogged reed stylus still capped. 9 volcanic twilight. Ash winter prelude. As sea settles, sky darkens. Distant Santorini, or perhaps a lesser-known vent on mid-Atlantic ridge, belches pumice clouds. Ash rains onto sodden city, coating ruins in gray quilt. Remaining survivors cough charcoal mud, eyes stinging. Sun shrinks to ember behind. Static haze, photosynthetic plankton crash. Fish kill floats, layering canals with silver carcasses. Disease probability spikes 0.10, last measured pulse. The sluice gong falls silent. Water ministry gong. Once tide clock heartbeat, last strikes. 2 days post-quake, when retreating tide yanks hung bronze disc from beam, dragging it down sluice chute. Echo fades, no replacement arrives. Without acoustic metronome, civic rhythm shatters. Tablet Delta 44 excavated near Cadiz reads, shafts broken, breath of sea unstoppable. We dance in circle of flood, God silent, curved hurriedly, script, skewed, as if scribe chiseled while deck surf crashed against ankles. Closing wavefront, exhale, 6 counts, letting imagery of fault lines, avalanches, and sky-black tide recede. Geological pulse struck, hydraulic marvels shattered, covenant drowned beneath layers of silt and ash. Next chapters will chart the diaspora, sunless crops, and diaspora myths that float far beyond the drowned concentric rings. Chapter 7. Ash over an azure grave. Sunrise no longer begins with coral pink reflections along Canal 3. Instead, a muted copper disk struggles through a ceiling of volcanic ash that drifts like industrial gauze across the horizon. Light diffuses, colorless, casting neither warmth nor shadow, only a leaden glow that confuses sundials and extinguishes the morale of crowing roosters. Fishermen staring westward see the once azure sea turned hematite, opaque with suspended silt flung outward by the submarine avalanche and subsequent megatide. Above, the cloud shears east in bruised ripples, a mobile mausoleum for sunlight. Breathe in for 4 counts. Taste the grit, sulfur, and distant cinnamon note of scorched. Cedar carried from fractured temple braziers. Hold briefly ash particles settling against tongue like ground glass, then exhale over 6. Picturing the haze thickening around ringed causeways where vines dangle dead fruit too. Green to ripen. 1 volcanic winter metrics, the ash clock, contemporary. Ice core proxies indicate the atmosphere absorbed 15 to 17 teragrams of sulfur dioxide from an eruption likely centered at Thera or, alternately, a mid-Atlantic vent along the Atlantis ridge. Conversion to stratospheric sulfate aerosols decreased global solar radiance by 5%, sufficient to drop mean temperatures 1.5 degrees Celsius in the first post-eruption year. Climate modelers call this impact a volcanic winter. In Atlantis, farmers observed the phenomenon locally through the ash clock, a crude device mounted atop, land 3 silo domes, a bronze rod inserted into a translucent quartz tube. Each dawn, the rod's shadow should bisect a carved fish. Icon. After the eruption, the shadow vanished, replaced by a diffuse stain. Record scratched on the slate note, day 3. Fish eclipsed, wheat laments. So began a new agricultural calendar, measured not by solstice, but by the density of gray settling on grape leaves. 2. Sunless crops, wheat in permanent twilight, outer. Agrarian terraces specialized in Triticum azurium, a blue husk wheat bred for saline irrigation. These stalks, once golden by midsummer, now sprouted pallid and spindly, their chloroplasts suffocated by low lux conditions. Farmers tried bonfires to thin cloud cover, but flames only added soot to the pall. Pollinating insects, disoriented by spectral shift, failed to visit vines. Vineyard leaves curled inward like fists. Emergency horticulture texts carved into driftwood. Proposed mirror arrays to redirect canal reflections onto terrace fields. Craft guilds erected 12 polished copper heliostats. Ash quickly filmed the mirrors, dulling them to pewter. Laborers wiped surfaces, but abrasive dust scratched plates, scattering light rather than focusing it. Yield records plummeted from 5 amphorae of grain per Caris month to under 1. Grain dole queues extended from multi-granaries into colonnades that still smelled of Poseidon incense. Ration clerks redistributed pearl note credits, Chapter 5, into ash tokens thin ceramic slivers stamped with hourglass glyph. Each token allowed 1 scoop of barley porridge thickened with ground kelp, the Empire's new filler carbohydrate. Children nicknamed the gruel sky mud. 3 civic unraveling, market of shattered promises. 3 weeks after the sky blackout, spice merchants shuttered stalls. Saffron petals browned in tubs, losing fragrance. Orichalcum artisans melted festival coins into crude ingots to barter for salted fish. Tide-bound values collapsed as pearl aquaculture failed, oysters choked on silt. A barter economy emerged. Basalt chisels for jars of clarified algae oil. Star chart scrolls traded for goats that could still digest brackish. Reed. Political tension escalated. Autochthon Hill barricaded grain stairwells. Museus Hill blockaded the eastern bridge, claiming tolls payable in fresh water. Fishery guilds from Land 2 demanded canal cleanups. Engineers argued they lacked manpower because labor gangs now. Dug mass burial pits for eel die-off laws, carved into Orichalcum tablets, tarnished beyond legibility. Scribes re-inked edicts onto pine bark, but discovered resin coated with ash-repelled pigment. Chaos couriers scrawled directives with charcoal on limestone walls, quickly overwritten by dissenting graffiti. Poseidon eats kings first. For Ashfall. Psychology. Day without shadows. Modern psychologists study shadow deprivation as stressor, without crisp outlines. Human circadian cues falter, altering melatonin cycles. Atlanteans lacked their vocabulary but sensed malaise. Diaries etched on thin lead sheets speak of gray noon vertigo and eyes yawning, never waking. Temple physicians prescribed amber lenses. Lens-blown glass reflected sepia, momentarily lifting mood, but production was scarce. A new symptom emerged. Loomers stare weavers, fixed gaze on warp looms hours after shuttles stilled. Lost in color deprivation. Carvers mis-chiseled letter forms, their depth perception skewed. Acolytes mistimed tide gongs by minutes, disorienting ferry pilots who collided with partially submerged debris. 5 food riots at the whaleback. Stair, day 43. Ration cauldrons run dry by midday. Crowd forms at whaleback stair, Temple of Poseidon. Columns lean precariously post-quake, yet hungry masses press upward. Demanding coral shell reserves rumored beneath atrium floor. Guard garrison, reduced to half strength by bronchial ash infections, raises bronze shields but retreats when Orichalcum facades overhead groan. Shedding panels that clang onto steps. Priest Delphus Anector attempts censure right. Brandishing cracked jade siphon trident. Protesters hurl ash balls saturated with fish oil. Flame bursts spread along mosaic tiles, blackening dolphin motifs. Violence ebbs when tide surge backfills Canal 1, forcing crowd to wade knee-deep in gritty water. Riot disperses, leaving smeared tesserae and trident abandoned, its siphon clogged by pumice. 6. The Gray Census, Tally of Abandonment. Council scribes compile the Gray Census. Population fallen from 6,400 to under 42,000 in 2 moons. Cause: drowning first wave, ash pneumonia, famine, exodus. Slipping away by reed canoe refugees. Aim for distant archipelagos carrying chipped coral fans and tide. Bond shells now worthless but symbolically hopeful. Emissaries sent along diaspora routes. Note other coasts gripped by similar gloom. Iberian tin traders describe sunrise like steel-hammered fin. Egyptian scribes sketch Re as diminished disk embraced by Set. Global volcanic winter extends far beyond Atlantis, yet local devastation intensifies due to prior hydraulic destruction. 7. Technological. Band-aids, ember heat greenhouses. Engineers attempt salvage, converting glass roof amphitheaters into ember heat greenhouses. They layer canal silt against walls as insulation, burn algae bricks to warm air, and plant fast cycle legumes. Early trials succeed, producing fist-sized beans fluorescing faintly from sulfur bacteria, yet ember supply wanes. Algae bricks crumble. Roof panes crack under tremor aftershocks. A singular success surfaces. Black-cap mushroom cultivation inside flooded storehouses. Fungi thrive on damp cedar beams. Palate unfamiliar with earthy flavor at first rejects. Hunger adjusts. Tastes. For a brief window, markets trade mushroom spores for tattered sun maps used now only as tinder. 8C mirror of guilt. One evening, ash cloud thins, revealing a mirror flat sea tinted gunmetal. Survivors gather along collapsed harbors, witness canals reflecting black constellations of burnt torches. Some believe Poseidon's eye opened underwater, watching. Others interpret reflection as cosmological return ticket. The sky, having taken color, loans back its shape on ocean face. Delphus Anector, stripped of priestly garb, kneels at waters. Edge, speaking apology verses. We rang the gongs off rhythm. We chose cedar over kelp. Forgive hubris hewn in Orichalcum. Waves reply with oily hush, depositing a single pearl note on shattered key. Inscription erased by ash acids. He pockets token, wandering into palisade shadows. 9 administrative dissolution, the quiet coup. Atlas. Hill's remaining counselors propose relocation to mountain stronghold inland. Yumu's faction counters with island evacuation plan. Debate never convenes. Couriers vanish in ash storms. Regional captains declare provisional autonomies, minting their own script. Clay chits dipped in squid ink. Central authority collapses. Like column cores soaked too long. Nisia's archivists attempt to transport remaining tablets by raft, but siphon locks jam. Raft's founder. Tablet sink. One pack breaks open, unleashing cuneiform shards that swirl like shoals of terracotta fish. Beneath murky surface, 10 ash over an azure grave. Azure once signified pure horizon. Now it names the mass grave. Canals where bodies, boats, and dolphin stones mingle under raft of floating pumice. Ash drifts downward, layering strata on corpuses until forms soften. Silhouettes diffuse like memories viewed through frosted glass. Witness lists tally artifacts. Orichalcum thrones toppled. Basalt lighthouse base cracked. Cedar idol of seahorse half buried. No salvage crews venture. Footing unstable, respiratory masks non-existent. Only gulls return, pecking at fish eyes glazed silver by volcanic chemicals. Closing breath. The dusk, that lingers Exel 6 beats letting volcanic haze linger in. Imagination. The ringed city now gasps through fissures, crops wither. Civic bonds dissolve into ash tokens and mushroom barter. The empire's pulse weakens, yet diaspora seeds sail outward, carrying poems, star charts, and shattered shell currency to shores that will misremember their origin but preserve the legend. Next chapter will follow those outbound currents fleets chasing any horizon brighter than charred dawn. Chapter 9, Echoes and Distant Sands, when the first refugee flotillas vanished beyond. Atlantis' smoke curtain horizon, see Chapter 8. Their carved prows carried not only survivors, but fragments of a culture, the geometry of range canals, the glint of orichalcum shavings, and a night sky lexicon that charted destiny by Deneb's white pulse. 3 shorelines would later claim hints of this vanished polity: the river plains of Iberia, the mangrove bays of Yucatan, and the island chain of the Aegean. Archaeology, linguistics, and geomythology offer muffled echoes rather than shouted proof, yet the harmonics align too neatly to ignore. Tonight we sift those sands, seawater, and olive grove soils in search of Atlantean footprints. Breathe in 4 counts, the salt of Atlantic breakers off Cadiz. Hold to the humidity of Yucatan sonnets. Exhale 6 brushing your mind across. Winds that whistle through cycladic marble ruins. 1 Iberia, mudflats, Tartessos, and coin of the azure lion. The Donana Marsh hypothesis bangs Donana National Park, hosts sprawling marshlands flanking the Guadalquivir. River delta a mosaic of brackish pools, reed islands, and sandbars. A 2009 National Geographic LiDAR survey detected circular, ring-like anomalies beneath silt layers, each ring segment roughly equidistant, approximating a 1:3 diameter ratio reminiscent of Plato's canal descriptions. Sediment cores, dated the deepest stratum to circa 1200 BCE, within 2 centuries of Atlantis's proposed demise. Marine geologists argue these rings formed as oxbow, lakes evolving from meandering paleochannels. Yet pottery shards recovered nearby carry spiral square glyphs analogous to a Tocqueville Hill sigil. Chapter 4. Isotope analysis revealed a copper-nickel alloy inconsistent with local mining traditions, but matching spectrographic fingerprints of Azorian seamount nodules. That composition parallels Orichalcum recreation attempts. Chapter 2. Lending weight to cultural transfer. The Azure Lion Dramen, 1897. Treasure hunters near Huelva uncovered a hoard of electrum coins bearing a stylized lion atop wavy lines. Greek numismatists dubbed them Azure Lion Drams due to faint blue patina patches. Later tests showed trace cadmium producing that hue. Cadmium bronze techniques appear first in Atlantean metallurgy experiments. Mythographers note that Poseidon's third son, Menesius, rode a blue lion in poetic fragments preserved by Rhodian. Scholia. Whether apocryphal or not, the coin's imagery and metallurgy twine Iberian minting with Atlantean legend. Linguistic footprints, Celtiberian. Inscriptions on the Botarita plaques contain an unusual verb root, Atlan, used in context. Of lifting water or flood control. Philologists propose it as a loanword from seafaring refugees whose canal lexicon infiltrated local tongue. While speculative, its presence exclusively along Atlantic facade invites correlation with diaspora roots. 2. Yucatan, Cenote mirrors and Tickle's sky star glyph, transoceanic drift. Patterns Paleosanchang mapped ancient north equatorial current, loops showing drift trajectories from mid-Atlantic ridge to Caribbean coasts within 1418 months. Reed vessels trailing cedar resin. Caulking could survive if resupplied by rainwater and flying fish harvests, as logs indicate Atlanteans practiced. 2 outlier skiffs, swept by storm beyond Azores, may have ridden these loops to Mesoamerican shores. The cenote eclipse panels beneath the floor of Cenote Sagrado near Chichen Itza. Divers recovered jade plaques etched with concentric ring motifs surrounding a central trident-like fork. Carbon-14 dating of attached wooden frames surprised scholars around 900 BCE, predating classic Maya development. The panel's jade source traced to Motagua Valley in Guatemala, local, yet engravings bear non-Mayan numeral clusters counting 360-day cycles, aligning with Atlantean duodecimal calendar fragments. Some epigraphers read the glyph for north as a stylized Deneb diamond rather than customary Maya pole star sign. Tickle's sky star glyph and architectural rings Guatemalan city. Tickle's temple 4 houses lintel carvings describing a sky star. Canoe arriving during reign of Yukin Chan Keowel, circa 8th century CE, with passengers, whose speech rolled like waves. That oral memory could echo older encounters. Meanwhile, LiDAR imaging shows early pre-classic settlements around Lake Isabel, arranged in tri-ring ditches, unique among Mesoamerican sites. Sediment analysis dates ditches to 1100 to 800 BCE. Synchronous with diaspora timeframe, skeptics attribute rings to water management copying natural oxbows. Advocates highlight stone-lined sluice gates bearing spiral square reliefs identical to Iberian marsh artifacts. Whether independent invention or Atlantean echo, the morphological convergence intrigues. 3 Aegean Cycladic mirrors and the Dallas Trident Festival dot the Naxos Harbor tablets Mycenaean linear B tablets found at Grata. Naxos lists provisions. For guest fleet, sea wolf vessels interpretatio of dolphin motifs, dating 1190 BCE, the cusp of late bronze collapse. Rations include dried kelp cakes and fermented mushroom broth, diets alien to Aegean cuisine yet staple among Atlantean. Famine survivors, Chapter 7. 1 tablet notes. Sign stone of Deneb, guiding night departure. An astronomical phrase absent from mainstream Mycenaean lexicon. Cycladic mirror shrine on uninhabited Keros Islet. Archaeologists unearthed a shattered mirror array shrine thin. Silver discs oriented northwest, possibly former heliostats. Ceramics on site featured double dolphin spirals and a tricolor sea spray, pattern matching Atlantis' sevenfold salination dyes. Residue tests reveal iodine and carmine algae, linking back to canal antiseptic rites. The Delos Trident Festival ancient. Delos celebrated a trident festival every 5th spring. Accounts by Callimachus describe a jade siphon sprinkling tricolored seawater arcs across. Agra striking parallel to Temple of Poseidon's Rite, Chapter 5. Although Greeks attribute ceremony to Apollo's purification, Atlantean refugees integrating into Cycladic culture could have seeded the ritual. Its Poseidonic origin gradually SYNCRETIZED.4 comparative. DNA traces and skeletons and seashells. 2018. Genome mapping of remains from La Algada, Iberia, El Mirador, Guatemala, and Cufinisia Cyclades identified a rare mitochondrial haplogroup. Next to a limited distribution today among North Atlantic coastal populations, statistical models place its divergence circa 1500 BCE, overlapping the diaspora horizon. While gene flow via trade cannot be dismissed, maritime mass migration offers elegant explanation for synchronous appearance across 3 distant shores. Conch shell. Isotopic profiling similarly points to Atlantic mid-ocean signatures and shells, repurposed as trumpets at both Iberian and Yucatan sites. Strontium ratios align with Azorian mollusk strata, impossible to source by local currents alone. 5 mythic reverb, from Atlantis to Antillia and Aslan. Antillia, the Isle of 7 Cities, Portuguese sailors of 15th century site, Antillia. Large Atlantic Isle with 7 citadels. Scholars trace mythic scaffold to Arabic Al-Tan, potentially corrupted Atlantean echo. Early Iberian cartographers plot Antillia where Donana rings lie, overlaying lost city rumor onto marshy truth. Aslan. Legendastic codices speak of ancestral homeland Aslan, reached by crossing water and following the White Huron star. Ethno-astronomers now propose White Huron matches Deneb's beam. While not proof, the lexical kinship between Aslan and Atlant invites reflection. Diaspora memory mutates but endures in syllabic DNA. 6. Counter-arguments and scholarly cautions. Skeptics. Highlight cultural convergence. Ring structures arise from hydraulics common to delta societies. Double dolphins appear globally as maritime totems. Radiocarbon wiggle matching for marsh rings holds plus or minus 100 years uncertainty, diluting correlation. Isotope contamination, post-depositional mixing, and forgeries complicate artifact provenance. Even mitochondrial matches risk statistical overreach. If sample size small, yet convergence across metallurgy, astronomy, hydrology, and myth cannot be dismissed as coincidental without thorough multidisciplinary scrutiny. 7. Narrative synthesis, faint footsteps in sand and foam. Perhaps no. Single coast cradles Atlantis' full ghost. Instead, shards embedded in Iberian marsh clay, Yucatan cenotes stalagmites, and Cycladic marble dust coalesce into a triptych. Picture diaspora voyagers scattering like sparks from collapsing forge, each spark dimming into local culture yet. Retaining core heat, Deneb's name, dolphin spirals, ring geometry dot as centuries pass. Ring patterns become labyrinths and Iberian tiles. Jade cenote panels serve as Mayan cosmogram prototypes, and Cycladic trident rites merge with Apollo's. Sanctification. Echoes fade, languages shift, yet some Atlantean consonants survive tides of translation, murmuring beneath the surface of modern folk ballads and midnight sailor lore. Closing exhalation XL6 counts allowing dust of Donana, Synodi humidity, and Aegean salt to mingle in imagination. Echoes and distant sands remain whispers, not declarations, but whispers repeated across continents carry weight. The next chapter tracks how Egyptian priests, Solon, and finally Plato sculpted those murmurs into formal myth, charting the slow mutation from refugee memory to philosophical allegory. Chapter 8. The long evacuation ash has thinned to a dirty gauze. Stars emerge faint as pinpricks through old parchment. Yet to the citizens who remain, that faint glitter marks a revelation. Navigation is possible again. In the 5th month, after the quake, engineers unbolt rusted sextants, scribes unroll star charts spotted with mold, and shipwrights stagger down to shattered keys. The decision is stark abandon concentric ruins or perish within them. Thus begins the long evacuation, the most ambitious civilian flotilla of the late Bronze Age, and the first great dispersal of what legend will call Atlanteans. Breathe in. 4 counts, tasting brackish haze mingled with cedar tar from still smoldering warehouses. Hold 2, exhale 6, watching silhouettes of half-rigged triremes, bog where lighthouse reflection once danced. 1 census of the willing population. Tally, from an original 64,000 before disaster, only 27,000 souls present for embarkation. Nosius archivists carve rosters onto slate, dividing citizens into wave quotas. First tide 12,000, skilled navigators, shipwright families, temple healers, map masters. Second tide 9,000, farmers, herders, forge. Smiths, mosaic masons. Final tide, remainder, wounded, orphaned, elderly, and guard detachments. Each tide allotted a fleet of hulls based on displacement tonnage. Atlas Hill Shipyard lists 47 seaworthy triremes, 22 biremes, and 118 reed-hulled coracles retrofitted with plank decking. Orichalcum nails rare. Boatwrights substitute hardwood dowels soaked in algae resin. Caulking supplies dwindled, so brewers donate pitch barrels intended for amphora glaze. Scribes issue starstone tokens, flat river pebbles inscribed with constellation glyphs corresponding to fleet assignment, dolphin for first tide, goatfish for second, broken wheel for final, children string tokens on kelp twine, tactile passports ensuring families board correct vessels even in torchlit chaos. 2 star maps and nocturnal lighthouses. Atlantean astronomy tables record. 12 bright paths, zenith arcs traced by seasonal guide stars. With torches scarce, navigators adopt nocturnal lighthouse technique. Crew hoists polished copper bowl toward masthead. Inside, a pebble of glowing fungus illuminates grid of pin-pricked holes replicating target constellation. When true star aligns behind mask holes, helmsman adjusts course. Chief Navigator Asteron selects Deneb as Exodus anchor high declination, visible above ash plume. Helmsman memorize rhyme, Deneb stern the dolphin turn. Tail to dawn, we sail till morn. Rhyme cadence doubles as rowing champ. 8 strokes per couplet maintain 4-knot cruise. # lodestone and drifting north engineers salvage. Half-intact magnetic chain net segments, Chapter 6. By suspending lodestone beads under cork, they craft primitive azimuth stones. Tests in harbor show needle stub points consistently north-northwest, verifying Earth's field still cuts through ash aerosol. Combined with star masks, fleets possess dual guidance, celestial at night, geomagnetic by cloud day. 3 embarkation, the dolphin tide. Dawn, day 156 post-quake. First tide assembles at whaleback stair, mosaic paths still slick with algae. Children clutch reed baskets stuffed with sea fennel and smoked mushroom wafers, last functional city ration. Delphus Enector appears without priest robe, holding cracked jet siphon. He blesses water by dipping siphon into canal, murmuring, truncated hymn, Survivors raise Concorn's tone waivers, but carries ships push off, using scorched oars scavenged from festival races. Canal locks jammed open by subsidence channel, the flotilla seaward in single file, hulls scraping barnacle-laden. Walls. At harbor mouth, remaining breakwater crescents funnel swells. Rowers strain but pass. On open ocean, breeze fills patchwork flax sails stained gray by soot. Inner-city crowds line balconies, releasing wind lantern kites made from fish bladder and ember gas. Lanterns pulse orange, ascending shaky arcs until ash gusts extinguish. Flames, symbolic gesture hope temporarily airborne. 4. Navigation corridors and diaspora destinations. Ship manifest chart 3 corridors. 1. Nord-Occident, route hugging Ibero-Celtic shelf toward Tartessos Delta, modern Volva. Purpose, trade tin for grain, refound canal science and river marshes. 2. Mid-Atlantic leap, sweeping toward island arc. Madeira hypothesis, then veering east to Morocco. Goal, access Atlas copper lodes and inland aquifers. 3. Aegean shadow line, rare. Risk heavy trek past Thera Caldera into Greek waters. Hoping Mycenaean ports offer asylum. Star chart dispatch tablets advise navigation by Mercator. The mind. Hold course until Deneb kisses horizon. Then follow azimuth stone 15 degrees portside. Food stock projection. 8 days dried kelp. 12 amphory brine beans per trireme. Water fortnight supply using reed bamboo cisterns. 5 trials on the open sea. Gales and bioluminescent wolves. Day 4 at sea. Ash cloud thins. Starlight intensifies. Yet trade winds gather. White-capped rollers thrash reed coracles. 1 vessel ruptures dowel seam. Crew offloads onto companion. Trireme leaving hull to founder quietly. Night. Plankton blooms ignite under hull wakes, glowing teal. Children lean over gunnels, dubbing them sea wolves. Half rations of kelp stew consumed. Morale stabilizes under cosmic sprawl. Asteroid convenes. Decked map lecture pointing out Pleiades, distant yet now clear. Astronomer acolyte clicks bone astrolabe. Calculating north drift. He smiles first time since quake. The mutiny on Byreme 8, second tides Byreme 8, loses helmsman to lung fever. Quartermaster attempts course correction. Rowers accuse him of hoarding dried figs. Scuffle ends with improvised. Ink tablets splintered. Delphus's nephew mediates, offering congregation of starstones and figpot as communal trust vault. Conflict subsides, illustrating fragile social glue. 6 landfalls and microcolonies. TARTESSOS Delta 1st Flotilla. Sites Delta wetlands flanked by ochre cliffs. Iberian fisherfolk initially retreat, then trade smoked eels for bronze chisels crafted from salvage. Atlantean engineers map estuary tides, envision canal analogs. Dredging teams erect reed huts, naming settlement New Circle 1. Within months, they replicate inverse lock using pine beams and oyster shell grout. Atlas foothills. Oasis Mid-Atlantic Leap Group grounds near present-day Agadir. They barter Orichalcum flakes for barley seed with Berber tribes. Oasis wells dug using spiral augers. Water sweet. However, desert storms bury half storehouses in sand. Settlers adapt, constructing half-submerged storage vaults. Cyclades refugee and shadowline survivors anchor off Naxos. Mycenaean warlord demands copper toll. Atlantean smith demonstrates magnetic stone. Locals deem it divine, granting harbor rights. Refugees build hillside observatory, introducing star mask lighthouse method, later absorbed into Greek pharos. Design: 7 culture on the move, portable mosaics and ashtone music. Each fleet carries. Travel mosaics: tesserae glued onto linen backing that roll into scrolls. Patterns depict dolphin spirals, Ringe Canal's portable memory. Settlers unroll scrolls in communal squares, pressing them into fresh mortar, creating miniature sanctuaries. Instruments evolve, bronze water gongs lost, artisans craft ashtone, flutes from reed charred during riots. The flutes emit melancholic timbre, scales drifting microtonally between major and minor. Musicologists in modern Andalusia trace origins of certain canti-jondo intervals to these instruments. Lexicon shifts language fractures. Iberia group adopts Celtiberian loanwords. Atlas colony borrows Tamazight terms. Aegean survivors interact with Mycenaean Greek, yet all retain Deneb as concept of hope. Even centuries later, Punic sailors refer to Deneb's star as Deneb Atlan, the guide that fled the rings. 8 messages in coral ink, diaspora correspondence network. Before fleets parted, archivists devised coral ink letters, sheets of parchment infused with crushed red coral, resistant to saline decay. Couriers on swift skiffs route letters along colony chain. Surviving fragments excavated near Cadiz show tie bond exchange rates, astronomical observations, and philosophical essays debating whether homeland's destruction equaled divine. Verdict or natural cycle. One letter ends. Better rings in mind than rings in ruin. The phrase becomes motto for diaspora schools teaching canal geometry via sand drawing, using seashell halves to etch nested circles. 9 echoes back home. The silent rings dot back in Atlantis. Final tide delays. Disease and famine continue. Surviving elders light whale oil beacons but receive no returning sail. An abandoned dove courier coop capsizes in wind. White feathers scatter over gray water. Last council minute carved into wet clay. Records only 4 words. Circle broken, tide spent. Tablet discovered 2001 by ROV submersible. Edges eroded. Sea life reclaims ruins. Coral polyp colonies anchor to Orichalcum. Shards. Octopi lair inside basalt tower stumps. Dolphins still circle canals, now filled by ocean. Azure Grave hosts new ecosystem. Bright fish flitting over ash blank mosaic fragments. Closing horizon. Exhale 6 counts. Picture fleets dwindling into starlit routes, each hull a lantern of lost geometry, navigating toward uncertain futures. The ringed city fades below horizon, but its engineering, star maps, and dolphin mosaics float onward in lines, scrolls, and coral ink letters. Next, chapter will trace how those echoes manifest in distant sands and myth mutations across continents. Chapter 11. Modern sonar, ancient pulse mid-Atlantic night. A moonless void stretches from wave crest to star prick, yet the research vessel RV Resonantia pulses with light beneath its waterline. Arrays of blue LEDs flicker whenever the ship's multi-beam sonar fires a packet of sound toward the abyssal plain 2 kilometers below. Each ping descends at 1,500 meters SY, strikes sediment, then ricochets home, carrying whispers of terraces, ridges, and perhaps concentric anomalies hankering to match Plato's ratios. Technicians on deck sip cardamom coffee, their retinas aglow with neon bathymetry on wheelhouse monitors. Inhale to account of 4 ocean iodine spiked with diesel and ozone from storm. Residuals. Hold 2. Exhale 6, picturing pixel lines populating the screen like dawn across a cratered seafloor. 1. From lead line to LiDAR, a brief instrumentation, arc 19th century. Asterisk naval hydrologists drop coated lead weights, probing. Depth point by point tedious. Prone to current drift, 1950. S** single beam echo sounders convert depth to voltage spikes on rolling paper. Each trace a ragged heartbeat, hinting at shoals beneath merchant hulls. 1990s. Asterisk multi-beam arrays, fan 120. 150 acoustic beams, mapping swaths 15x vessel depth. 2010s. Asterisk autonomous underwater vehicles, ATUVs, roam trenches, chirping side-scan sonar mosaics. Resolution climbs to 0.5 meters, sufficient to discern shipwreck ribs or canal berms. 2020s. Asterisk sub-bottom profilers fire low-frequency booms penetrating 50 meters of silt. Imaging paleo-topography entombed beneath Holocene drape. 202425. Asterisk synthetic aperture sonar aboard torpedo-shaped drones. Stitches gigabyte tiles into 3D seafloor quilts. Their data streamed via laser acoustics to overhead satellites. Atlantis research piggybacks each wave. Layering analog speculation with teraflops of sonar Echo Point 2, Operation Trident Echo, a multinational survey, launched 2023 by a consortium of Portuguese, Moroccan, and Turkish institutes. Trident Echo targets a 350 square kilometers polygon northwest of the Strait of Gibraltar, encompassing the Cadiz submarine fan, geological suspect from Chapter 6, and adjacent plateaus. Equipment manifest, AUV Calypso, side scan sonar at 450 kHz, 30 centimeters resolution, RAV Pelagia -6K camera suite, sub-bottom chirp, sediment cores, AIM magnetometer trawl, scanning for alloys enriched with zinc or cadmium, seafloor seismographs, logging microtremor lattice to overlay structural maps. Mission control superimposes Plato's scaled city diagram onto bathymetry, aligning central Acropolis with high point of Atlantis. Escarpment block, skeptics scoff. Engineers simply calibrate. First pass digital hills and chalk Calypso sweeps grid at 70 meters altitude. Monitors bloom with knobby relief, mud volcanoes, carbonate mounds, slide scars. Day 3, technicians isolate 7 quasi-circular. Terraces stacked like misshapen coins. Diameters escalate in ratio 1 to 3 to 5 similar yet not perfect. Could submarine currents carve dunes into rings? Geomorphologists argue yes, yet sonic shadows of possible man-made berms persist. 3 core chronicle reading silt as stratigraphy scroll. Pelagia drills 4 piston cores through ring crusts, each 12 meters long. Core logs, 0 to 2 meters. Recent bioturbated mud, plastic bags, microplastics, 2 to 4 meters. Holocene olive gray clay, abundant foraminifera, 4 to 5.6 meters. Layer of mixed sand and pumice shards. KAR dating tags eruption window 1600 to 1200 BCE range, matching our volcanic winter. Chapter 7. 5.6 to 6.2 meters. Compact silt with anomalous nickel spikes and cadmium halos geochemical. Fingerprints of hypothetical Orichalcum debris. Greater than 6.2 meters. Fern limestone conglomerate pre-quaternary basement. Microcomputed tomography reveals angular lithic class at 5.8 meters. Some with holes bored through, diameter 12 millimeters, suggestive of dowel timber framing. If natural, why drilled? If cultural, where timber? Lignin traces degrade, yet X-ray fluorescence detects faint cellulose ghost. 4 digital reassembly. Point clouds and algorithmic canals. Data scientists feed sonar point clouds, sub-bottom slices, and coring coordinates into bathyscan at eye, an algorithm trained on terrestrial cities buried under sediment, for example, Alexandria's eastern harbor. Algorithm identifies ring provenance odds, 68% fluvial, 22% mass wasting, 10% anthropogenic, 10% tantalizes press. Peer reviewers demand caution. 3D. Renders show discontinuous berms forming pseudo-circles. When gap segments are closed by morphological inference, composite footprint reveals tri-ring spacing within 3% of Plato's metrics. Critics note confirmation bias. Still, probability map glows amber over epicenter, 5 deep-sea dredges harvesting. Orichalcum ghosts. Ship's moon pool hoists dredge bucket lined with Kevlar nets. First hull brims with manganese nodules. Magnetometer beeps over odd bluish pebble. Lab scans show copper 78%, zinc 17%, nickel 3%, cadmium 0.2%, strikingly similar to Iberian azure lion alloy, Chapter 9. Surface encrusted in ferromanganese. Inside core still metallic. Oxygen-free burial preserved microhammer. Marks indicative of sheet repousse. Radiocarbon of adhering organics, unreachable metal, inert, but marine 231. Pa 230th ratios suggest seafloor residence 3,000 plus, or minus 500 year. Paper drafts circulate preprint servers. Headlines scream, Orichalcum, found. Grant reviewers advise temperance. 6 acoustic tomography listening for walls. Seismologists. Deploy 12 ocean bottom seismometers, OBS, around anomaly. Ship's airgun fires low frequency booms. OBS captures reflected waves. Processing reveals acoustic impedance contrasts at minus 10 meters inside ring. Forming linear ridges 3 to 4 meters high, slope 60. Natural slump rarely yields such slope without buttressing. Finite element modeling suggests basalt blocks could create similar signature. Without diving, perf elusive. Depth 2,000 meters strains ROV umbilicals, but Pelagio descends. Floodlights reveal vertical face stone. Camera arm scrapes biofilm. Gray surface resolves into squared layers. Touch sensor notes hardness greater than basalt. High definition stills show faint groove, possibly dovetail seating for sheet metal. 7 Data into story media. Markets and ethics. Journalists aboard tweet sonar snapshots. Atlantis hashtag spikes. Cryptocurrency startup issues Atlant token. Value pegged to the Orichalcum index. UNESCO officials warn of preemptive treasure hunters. Moroccan and Portuguese navies debate jurisdiction. Indigenous Berber scholars remind that seafloor also hosts paleo-cultural heritage of their ancestors. Ethicists convene. Should wreck remain sanctified tomb or yield knowledge? Descendant groups from diaspora colonies, Chapter 8 and 9, petition for genetic and artistic sampling rights. Aegean Council donates cycladic mirror shards to sonar team in gesture of unity. 8 Virtual resurrection from echo to experience. Bathiscan AI exports mesh to VR labs. Users don haptic gloves, roam simulated brain city reconstructed via best fit models. Gong sound. Dolphin mosaics sparkle under algorithmic sunlight. Yet creators insert transparency overlays. Red zones denote uncertainty. Visitors see ghosts. Scaffolds behind digital walls. Learning to differentiate data from conjecture. UNESCO and MIT host Open Atlantis Archive. Crowdsourcing coral ink letter transcriptions. Starstone token catalogs. Audio of ashtone flutes. Middle school students in Andalusia remix samples into electronic music titled Deneb Drift.9, The Pulse Confirmed Microgravity Anomalies, 2025. ESA's Crust EY satellite passes over site with quantum gradiometer. Data show gravity low, corresponding to voids under ring plateau, perhaps collapsed chambers. Coupled with acoustic tomography, evidence tips scale. Majority of geophysicists now concede archaeological probability greater than 0.5. Funding snowballs, yet storms brew both. Political, mineral rights, and literal. Hurricane strength gyre forecast through Azores High threatens buoy arrays. Team meshes to install seabed heritage plaques in stainless steel, reading, here resonated canals and gongs of a vanished confederation. Respect silence. Final. Exhalation, digital silt, and human breath. Exhale 6 counts, feeling sonar pings fade into ocean hush. The city dreamed in digital silt now flickers on VR headsets. Lines journals, stirs investor greed, and humbles oceanographers. What began as coral ink memory, filtered through Solon's hexameters and Plato's allegory, returns as gigabyte echo ancient pulse meeting modern algorithm. Atlantis is neither mere parable nor wholly resurrected city. It is conversation, across millennia, carved first in dolphin stone, now etched in bit depth. Myths mutate, yes, but echoes endure on papyrus and diaspora mosaics, beneath sonar shadows inviting each generation to lean over railings at night, listening for a pain that might align with a distant denab, marking where hope once circled rising water.